observe commemoration days for 4 genocides. On April 7th is the anniversary of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. On April 17th is the memorial for the Cambodian genocide. April 24th is Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. And this year, it lands in May. Usually Holocaust Remembrance Day is in April, but this year it's May 4th through 5th. And this is because Yom HaShoah follows the lunar Jewish calendar. This month, Genocide Awareness Month, we take the opportunity to raise awareness about all genocides, including those being perpetrated today. Genocide does not happen overnight. It's a process, and often a process that follows a pattern. In today's presentation, you will hear about the 10 stages of genocide and specifically how it applies to the Uyghur population in China. The last stage, stage 10, is denial. All of the events commemorated in April and others like them have been minimized, denied, or distorted. It is often the perpetrators and those that protect them that deny the atrocities. This denial is a process, one that starts in the early stages of the genocide and that can last for generations after. Denial excuses the actions of the perpetrators, attempts to justify it, and normalizes the hateful ideologies and violence. Ultimately, it prevents the victims and their communities from receiving acknowledgement of what they have endured. April is an opportunity for those committed to history and remembrance to alert others to the dangers of denying the past and of ignoring atrocities occurring in our own times. For years, the Chinese government has systematically persecuted the Uyghur population. The Chinese persecution of the Uyghurs has escalated and is ongoing, and it is in plain sight of the rest of the world. Rushan Abbas has been speaking out and raising awareness of the human rights abuses against the Uyghur population for decades. Rushan has worked closely with members of Congress since the 1990s and was a co-founder of the Uyghur Overseas Student and Scholars Association in 1993, the first such Uyghur association in the US. From 2002 until 2013, Rushan translated for the 22 Uyghurs who were being held in Guantanamo. After working for more than 20 years in global business development, international relations, and government affairs, Rushan Abbas is now a full-time activist, working to advocate for Uyghur people while they are facing genocide by the Chinese regime. In 2017, Rushan founded the Campaign for Uyghurs to advocate and promote human rights and democratic freedoms for Uyghurs, and mobilize the international community to act to stop the human rights atrocities. And in February of 2022, Campaign for Uyghurs was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for activism and advocacy. Rushan frequently briefs US lawmakers and officials on the human rights situation in East Turkistan and testifies at the United States Senate and Congress on the Chinese regime's crimes against humanity. She regularly appears on media outlets to advocate for the Uyghur cause and gives public speeches throughout the country. This is only a shortened list of all of Rushan's accomplishments. And in this long list, there's one thing that she didn't mention, and that is her local tie to our area. When Rushan came to the US, she lived in the Tri-Cities area of Washington State and raised her 3 kids in Richland. Rushan joins us today from her home in Virginia. We will have time to take questions from the audience at the end of the program. Please type in your questions at any time into the Q&A. Rushan, it is an honor to have you back on this program, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Alina, and thank you, everyone, members of the Holocaust Museum who's organizing this important event today. And the dear friends, thank you for joining us today for this important conversation. I had a very different life just about 5 years ago. I was a devoted mother with a successful career, and I never imagined that I would be traveling around the world and speaking about the tragedy of my people, the Uyghurs. Next, please. Some of you may have heard who the Uyghurs are, and some of you may not. The Uyghurs lived in Central Asia, which was a center of commerce for more than 2,000 years, and also as a cradle of scholarship and the culture and the power, as the many religions and the Silk Road, the ancient Silk Road went through. But Manchus invaded in our homeland in 1876, and they give us a name, Xinjiang, which means new territory, in 1884. But the Chinese Communist government occupied our homeland in 1949, and the Uyghur people are facing all kinds of oppressions ever since the occupation. During the 50s, Uyghurs were labeled as nationalists. 60s, during the Cultural Revolution, Uyghurs were labeled and persecuted under the name of counter-revolutionists. And then 80s, we had a little bit of freedom when China established diplomatic relations with the United States and the West. But then right after the 9/11 tragedy, in the United States, the Uyghurs were labeled as terrorists in overnight, just because of their religion, and they're facing all kinds of persecution, which led to the current stage right now. Next, please. So as Lina mentioned earlier, what is genocide? The killing of a race or tribe where the perpetrator intend to destroy a group defined by race and ethnicity and the religion. But what's happening to us is basically everything what the Chinese government is doing is describing and showing the intent of destroying the Uyghur people completely. Next, please. Next. According to the Geneva Convention's punishment of the crime of genocide, there are 5 elements. If only one element is happening, you can call it genocide. First, killing member of the group, second one is causing serious bodily or mental harm. Third one is deliberately inflicting the group's conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Third, the fourth is imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the group. And the fifth one is forcibly transferring children of the group from one to the other. There's at least 4 of these 5 elements are confirmed again and again by not only victims' testimonies, researchers, scholars, and the journalists' reports, as well as document after document from the Chinese government's own leaked data. But also, next please, we have the United Nations report. On August 31st, in the last few minutes of former commissioner for UN Human Rights Council, Michelle Bachelet's term expired, she released the Uyghur report. And if you look at what's described in the report, it matches not just the one, but a few elements that described in the Geneva Convention as genocide crimes. Millions of our people are in detention, and all kinds of mental and the physical and the sexual torture in the camps, and the complete surveillance, making 1984 is nothing when it's combined with advanced technology and the complete suppression of the government, and the forced labor programs, moving the millions of Uyghurs to China proper to work as modern slaves, and as well as sterilization of the Uyghur women. And there are reports about 1 million Uyghur children are taken from their families and sent to state-run orphanages. Next, please. If you look at the area, it's about 4 times size-wise. Our region is about 4 times of California and the 1/6 of entire China. Landscaping is sandwiched between high mountains and the desert, high mountains and desert, and high mountains. And we all know what's in desert. China's major petroleum and the natural gas resources, and as well as very high quality cotton is being produced there. And tomatoes, Heinz ketchup is using the tomatoes handpicked by Uyghur slaves, basically, making this genocide a profitable venture for the Chinese government. Next, please. So if we look at the 10 stages of the genocide, number 1 is the classification and how the citizens or the group gets divided into the categories of us and the them, and the government or whoever is conducting the genocide labeled the group as dangerous or immoral or bad people. Next, please. And that's exactly what has happening to our people. If you look at these 2 pictures, these are actually, both pictures are from my family. The one on the left is my parents, my sister in the middle in the green, and I will tell you her story a little bit later, and my sister-in-laws, my cousins, aunts, and that was 30 years ago. Just normal family, normal people. The Uyghurs are Muslims, but we are really secular Muslims. You don't see them look like backwarded, or the picture on the right is my family now with my 2 older brothers and my son and the daughter and my nephew and my sister-in-law. Just a regular, ordinary family, as you see. Next, please. However, as part of the classification of the Uyghurs, the picture you see on the right is how the Chinese government is using as propaganda pictures on the newspapers and on the media, make Uyghur people look like they are backwarded, uncivilized, and they are separatists, and they're calling Uyghurs terrorists just because we are Muslim, and they're criminalizing every aspect of normal practice of religion, and calling everything you do as a part of religion, like just the praying or fasting, or even just the refusing to eat pork or not drinking alcohol. Those are all illegal Islamic activities at the eyes of the government. Next, please. Stage 2 is symbolization. It's the visual stage, and sometimes symbols are imposed, or anything that's exists is criminalized, as I just mentioned. This fuels hatred, and the hatred towards the group, and it takes any kind of sympathy from the people you are living with. Next, please. Symbolization of the Uyghurs also started with any representation of the religion or ethnicity is unwelcomed, or it's not acceptable, and the government started the banning even just any kind of facial hair, the beards or mustaches, or wearing headscarves, or when they say illegal Islamic clothing, we are not talking about long Islamic like hijab or dresses. It's just a long tunic. If you have a shirt that's covering your behind, you are being humiliation on the streets of people, the government, the officials coming and cutting your tunic, cutting the bottom part off, so you will look normal in the name of the Chinese government. Next, please. And the stage 3 is discrimination. basically, we have been living, I left my homeland when I was 21, when I graduated university. But my 21 years of my life that I spent under the Chinese Communist regime in Urumqi, the capital city, I always felt like we are the secondary citizens, and we are always facing discrimination and all kind of oppression. We are always being put down. We are always being treated as not equal. And with the current genocidal policies, actually, there is a documentary, Frontline, PBS Frontline, reported 3 years ago, and they interviewed one of the government officials about some of the government policies, and reporter asks him, so when you do this to these people, isn't that the violation of their rights? And the official giggles, laughs, and says, what rights? They don't have any rights. Basically, in the front of the government and the government officials, the Uyghurs are not people who are supposed to be treated with any kind of legal rights. Next, please. With that, the last 7-8 years, the smart gate scan ID and electronics to determine. So you are being controlled when you want to take trains, or when you go to gas stations, or even going in and out of university. Every vehicle has GPS tracking devices, and every home has QR scanning codes and checkpoints on every 100 yards. If anybody uses VPN, they disappear right away. The police will knock the door immediately and take them out. And the worst thing is, this is not something that I am just talking as an activist, but Chinese government state media reported that 1.1 million Chinese cadres, basically 1.1 million government officials, mostly male, deployed into Uyghur homes, to live inside of Uyghur homes and monitor and supervise the Uyghurs' daily lives. So when most men are in detention or sent to forced labor facilities, what happens to the women? Basically, the Uyghur women face sexual abuse inside of their own homes, on their own bed. Next, please. Some pictures from those pair up and become a family programs. You see that the Han Chinese men with that Uyghur women. It's sickening when you think about, in the 21st century, how in the world something like this is happening, and you don't see that being covered in mainstream media. Next, please. Please click next to play this. This video shows a man recording it, 3 men on the bed, and 1 Uyghur woman on the right. Here she is with the infant in her arm. So imagine what happens to her when this man puts the camera down. She is being abused sexually, gang raped by 4 men in her own home. Next, please. And at stage 4, dehumanization talks about the group is being labeled and portrayed for not having mental capacities, and the attributes to humans as like civility or individuality. So basically, the government has been dehumanizing every aspect of Uyghur ethnicity and stigmatizing our religion and the culture to legitimize its cruelty against Uyghur people. Next, please. The Uyghurs were portrayed as brainwashed and violent, and clearly, actually, the Chinese government called Islam, actually, not just Islam, any religion, as a mental disease or virus to be eradicated. when this mass detention came to the media in early 2019, if you Google search this, you will see that article. One of the CNN reporters asked Cui Diankai, who was the Chinese ambassador to United States back then, and she asks, why are they holding those Uyghurs in detention? And he says, we are trying to re-educate them and make them normal people. So basically, because of the beautiful culture we have, because of the different language we speak, because of the the people that we are, in the vision of the Chinese Communist government, we are not even normal commodity. We are not even normal human beings. I see on the chat somebody is asking the population. I forgot to mention. The Chinese government, the statistics shows 11 to 12 million population, but the Chinese government always tried to make us look like small minority. So they always wrongly report the numbers. According to Uyghur scholars and the Uyghur intellectuals who did their own statistics on the collection of population, the Uyghurs are around 18 million. But right now, we don't know how many are actually surviving and living, because the cities and the areas, counties are vacant, basically empty. The streets are empty. Next, please. So stage 5 is organization. Again, once they start the preparation of criminalizing the group and the preparing the other general population to accept whatever kind of crimes that they are going to conduct against this group, and they start the official steps like building the camps, or official institutions are being repurposed, and the police and the military are getting ready. Next, please. By 2014, we started to hear that people were taken to those detention centers. First concentration camp, we call concentration camp because it just you will see the pictures a little bit later. They are being built in Loknor in 2014. And then eventually by April of 2017, we started to learn that more than 1 million people disappeared to the camps. The Integrated Joint Operation Platform, IJOP system, that they collect data, and it has access to people's utility bills, internet activities, social interactions, and daily routines, even biometric information like people's DNA samples. If somebody is going into their house from the back side of the back door instead of front door, then it's going to alert like something is happening. Anything the Uyghurs do, like just either ordinary life or anything that's just a little bit out of ordinary, then it's going to alert the government. Also, the Uyghurs forced to download app CleanNet Bodyguard on their phone for monitoring. Anybody who has WhatsApp on their phone, they are subject to detention. Next, please. So stage 6, through propaganda, public discourse becomes more polarized as the polarization stage. Any opposition to government oppression is shut down with force. For example, in 2013, 2014, the government started to implement shoot at the spot policy, which means anybody who, if they break any kind of like traffic rule, or for example, somebody passed the red light on the street, any police can shoot them down and kill them with no question to be asked. And when something like this happened, 17 years old young teenager passed the street light in the countryside on his motorcycle. The police, traffic police, shoot him, and he was killed. And his family and his people from that county carried young kid's body to the police station, demand justice, and everyone was shut down. They just opened fire, and then later reported as that was a terrorist violent action by the villagers against the policemen. What kind of violent action when those villagers has nothing but just holding a dead body? They have nothing, no gun, nothing on no weapon on their hands, but any sort of like protest or anything that people reject the government's harsh policies is being forced, shut down by force, facing basically massacre. Next, please. And the polarization, when you look at the Uyghurs, what's happening to them in the last 10 years is Chinese news increasingly demonize the Uyghur lives to justify the mass detention. And then CCP collaborates with social media platforms and the other fringe media to justify atrocities to the world. And again, reporting peaceful protests, wrongfully describing Uyghurs as violent separatists and the terrorists. And also, when we talk about the reality, and they are labeling us as CIA, and the West is spreading misinformation about China. Next, please. And the stage 7 as preparation, you have the detention centers are built, millions are in detention. Those millions of Uyghurs, the government already have their mandatory health records. The Uyghurs were subject to mandatory health check and the collection of DNA samples at the end of 2016. So the government has every single Uyghur's DNA samples, blood type, and their health records. So now you have millions of people in detention with government holding any kind of matching for forced organ harvesting. And now all the propaganda campaign starts with a call to action, and they will advocate for the internment and the deportations, and the government took about 600 Uyghur students from Egypt actually as a part of deportation when this detention started, and all the 600 disappeared. Actually, nobody knows the whereabouts of those young students. Yeah, that's the part of the preparation for the genocide. Next, please. We started to see massive Google Earth, the satellite imageries of camps being built, massive camps being built. Actually, there is one right next to the capital city, Urumqi. The size of the camp is bigger than the town actually next to it, can hold a few 100,000 people. And also the CCP purchased birth rate sterilization equipment and conducted analysis on who to sterilize to reduce the birth rate among the Uyghurs. And the religious sites being destroyed, the mosques are being turned to nightclubs or destroyed. More than 8,000 mosques being destroyed, and another 8,000 actually turned to nightclubs or where people the Chinese settlers raising pigs, and about 16,000 mosques destroyed, actually being demolished and turning down, and all that 8,000 being completely demolished, another 8,000 being destroyed. Next, please. Those are some of the examples, some pictures of just the ordinary streets. You have guarded police in the neighborhoods and the checkpoints in the middle of the neighborhoods, airport-style checkpoints. Next, please. Oh, hold on one second. The one on the quotation, must first break their lineage, break their roots, break their connections, and break their origins. There means the Uyghurs, and this is a quote from the party secretary of the Xinjiang Autonomous Region. And this chilling words, next, please. And again, actually continues with, again, teach like school, be managed like the military, be defended like a prison. That's also from the same party secretary talking about those camps. If you look at those camps, double barbed wires, high watchtowers, armed guards, what does that remind you of? We thought there's a war never again after the World War II. Next, please. Some of the pictures of the religious and the ethnic and the historical books being burned and the churches and the mosques being demolished. If there's one left, they put the Chinese red flag and Xi Jinping's picture and make people pledge themselves to Xi Jinping and to the Chinese Communist Party. The picture on the bottom, if anybody can read Chinese, you can read the Hashi Huimeng Jiuba, which means the bar that the 500 years old mosque converted to a bar nightclub. Next, please. So stage 8 has persecution. At this stage, basically the leaders and the people who can lead the community are being targeted and being in detention, and the children are taken from their families. Next, please. At this stage, stage 8 persecution, our thought leaders, religious leaders, intellectuals, university presidents, and the professors started to vanish to the camps. None of them has any criminal history or nobody committed any crimes. And the Uyghurs' bodies are exploited in any way possible for profit at this point. We see China's organ transplant is tripling and quadrupling, just making millions of profit. And of course, forced labor is another big thing. The Uyghurs are being used as free laborers, and as well as Uyghurs in diaspora experience transnational repression. And by this time, actually, by summer of 2017, 24 members of my husband's family went missing. My parents-in-laws, 3 of my sister-in-laws, their husbands, brother-in-law, and his wife, and 14 of my husband's nieces and nephews went missing from city Hotan, southern part of the region where most the Uyghurs populated area. Next, please. Some pictures from the camps. As you see, the one on the right upper corner, how crowded that room is, and those people are subject to spending 24 hours there. That's where they sleep, that's where they study, that's where their lives are being spent. And the picture on the right, on the left corner, bottom, left lower, armed guards, they look like it's the war zone, but that's just the courtyard of the university. Students and professors are sitting there with armed guards and everywhere. And the picture on the middle, look at this old grandma, if you can see, there is a gray hair old grandma who's in her early 90s, 91, 92 years old grandma, is taken away from her home by 3 policemen for reading Quran in her home. What kind of national security threat old grandma like her poses to a country like China? And the one on the right, his name is Ablajan Ayub. He's known as Justin Bieber of the Uyghurs. He's a pop star, and he's missing since September. He's missing since 2017. Last 7 years, he's in detention somewhere. Next, please. And this is the story of my sister. So I participated on the panel in September 2018. And that was my first public speech that was on YouTube, televised to the world. I talked about my husband's family in detention. I talked about China's concentration camps and what's happening to my people. 6 days after that public speech, my sister was taken. Last 5.5 years, since September 2018, she's in jail now. Basically, my freedom of speech in the United States as an American citizen cost my sister's freedom. She's a retired medical doctor. The picture on the right is her 2 daughters. Both of them are American citizens, both live in the United States. That picture is when she came here to visit us in 2015. Next, please. And that's my family, my mother and my sister. My mother passed away 2004. And ever since I lost my mother, my sister being 5 years older than me, my mother was like, my sister was like my mother, you know, she was like a mother figure to me. She is the most kind, generous, and the most peaceful person, but she's in jail now in the label of terrorist. Look at her. Does she look like a terrorist? And her only crime is being my sister, basically, at this point. Next, please. Yeah, more pictures of my sister's daughter. Oh, yeah, I just want to mention something here, actually. So I have been holding my sister's photo in every place I go after her detention. And all of my social media, if you look at it, my social media handles are Rushan Abbas. I have a picture of my sister. When I double down my efforts, when I quit my full-time job and I'm advocating for my sister and carrying her photo, protesting in front of the Chinese embassy and speaking about China's detention of my innocent sister and those crimes against humanity. The Chinese government repeatedly did propaganda videos and as well as print. China Global Times Network did an article on me and said that Rushan Abbas, as a separatist from so-called Campaign for Uyghurs, stealing other people's photo, claiming this is her missing relative, and spreading lies about China. This is exactly how they wrote. So basically, they denied the existence of my sister, said that that picture I was holding, that picture my niece is holding, is not my sister. Then later we heard that they sentenced my sister in 20 years in jail on the terrorism-related charges. So we immediately called for a press conference at the Congressional Executive Committee on China with several lawmakers, senators, and the representatives. And then next day it was covered heavily on the media. And one of the Reuters reporters asked Wang Wenbin, the spokesperson for Chinese Foreign Ministry, about my sister. He just spelled it out her name, said Dr. Gulshan, I mean, he didn't say doctor, of course, and said Gulshan Abbas is sentenced accordance with the Chinese law, and she's serving for her crimes. So, hello, didn't you say a year ago that she did not exist and I was the liar? Now today you spell out her name and say that you have her in detention and you sentence her. Next, please. So my husband's family, since they are from like southern part in Khotan, where most the Uyghurs really populated area, they practice a little more religion. They all went missing, as I told you, my mother-in-law, my sisters, and the sister-in-law, and everyone. My husband did not hear anything from his family. Entire family went missing since September. I mean, since 2017, the summer of 2017. Then August 15th, 2023, last August, we learned from some distant relatives in diaspora that my father-in-law passed away in January 2023. So in today's world, information era with nanotechnologies, for a son, it took him 7 months to learn that his father passed away. And we have no idea in what circumstances and where and how he passed away. Next, please. 13 tons of human hair. So how many lives does that represent? CNN reported 13 tons of human hair made it over to United States Customs and Border Patrol. The product came from Xinjiang. So imagine, but that was not covered in mainstream media. I don't think any one of you recalls seeing this. Next, please. So as a part of persecution, you can keep clicking it. That's part of, shipping the Uyghurs to the forced labor facilities. Most of any industry you name it out there are tainted by Uyghur slaves. Next, please. All these brands that you all know are complicit with the Uyghur atrocity, not just complicit. They are making you and I are the enablers of this genocide today when we use their products. So my question to those companies, are you complicit in China turning a medical doctor into a textile worker as a forced laborer in your factories, supply chains? Next, please. So stage 9 is the extermination, as we all know what follows with that. Next, please. The Uyghur women are subject to forced sterilization, forced abortions, and also Uyghur women are forced to marry Han Chinese men. And the crematorias are being built next to those camps, as well as mostly Uyghurs populated areas for a religion, for a people who doesn't practice cremation. We are Muslim, we don't cremate bodies. Children are torn from their families, shipped all around China. So you already see how many elements of that Geneva Conventions, the description of crimes of genocide. Next, please. Yeah, what you see is what you are seeing, actually. This is the latest police file leak, and those are the mugshots of those people. You can keep clicking, please. Look at those pictures. Look at their eyes. Look at their faces. Click, please. Those young kids, 13, 14, 15 years old, and the grandma and the grandpa in their late 70s. Their crime is because they just practiced some normal religion, went to mosque or fast during Ramadan. These kids should belong to school, not in detention. Next, please. And that is not from the horror movies from the World War II. This is actual, the Uyghur people, blindfolded, shaved head, sat on the ground, then taken to the, if you look at the picture in the middle, this is from the some leaked video on the YouTube. They are taken to the train on the middle picture, and if you look at on the right upper corner, and shipped out. And they are also hauled away by a bus. They're just being dispersed all over China proper. Next, please. And some pictures from those forced marriages. Look at their girls' faces, Uyghur girls. If she refused such a forced marriage, which government is giving money, housing, and the jobs for those Han Chinese men to marry Uyghur girls, if she says no, herself, her family, her parents, her siblings, all sent to the camps in detention for Islamic extremists did not want to marry non-Muslim Han Chinese. Next, please. Kids, look at their faces. Look at the Uyghur kids on the upper left corner. They are in detention. If you look at the one on the right upper corner, double barbed wire, the place that being locked The kids are inside, they cannot go out, they cannot see their kids. If you look at the pictures on the bottom and on the middle, they are being raised as Han Chinese. Even Han Chinese people, they do not wear those kind of traditional Chinese clothes anymore. Next, please. And that is actually one area from one of the Uyghurs populated city called Kucha. And the people come there during daylight, come right after sunrise and stay there, cook, sell, trade, and they do all kind of, fun stuff, and then go home after sunset. Click, please. This is the same place now. What happened to the people? People just disappeared. Next, please. So the last state is denial. Denial exists during and after genocide has been committed. We have a full-fledged active genocide right now, and the Chinese government is working on a massive disinformation campaign and to fool the world. Next, please. Massive videos on the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and the TikTok showing that happy Uyghurs. And the government is announcing that the Uyghurs graduated from those vocational schools. And also Chinese embassy in United States openly tweeted, if you look at this picture on the right, this is the actual piece tweet. They said, after they sterilized Uyghur women, after the Uyghur birth rate dropped down to 0% in the most Uyghur populated areas, they said that Uyghur women in Xinjiang were emancipated and gender equality and productive health were promoted, making them no longer baby-making machines. Imagine, they are publicly congratulating their genocidal efforts. Next, please. Next, please. And even CBS and the other, CGTN is, of course, China Global Times Network, but CBS is rebranding Xinjiang and showing these happy Uyghurs dancing and singing like nothing is happening there. The journalists are being fooled when they go to the Potemkin-style visits by the invitation of the Chinese government to go and to come back and reporting things like that. Next, please. If you look at the Microsoft, if you do a Microsoft search about the Uyghur suffering, Uyghur genocide, or Uyghur atrocities, you see the actual happening. But if you click next, please. If you search in China, or if you use your VPN and pick one of the cities in China and the Google search Uyghur, you see all these happy Uyghurs dancing, singing, and being happy. Fake Uyghurs. Next, please. So there are some, I'm toward the end of my presentation, actually, some of the actual, action plans. There are 3 bills sitting in the Senate, all passed in the House. Now we need the Senate to pass those. Uyghur Policy Act, and as well as Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Application Act, and the Stop Organ Harvesting Act, all passed in the House. We need Senate to pass them. Next, please. And also act now here for my sister, try to demand her unconditional release. And there's also a documentary called In Search of My Sister, tells the story of my sister's case, but same time, everything you have heard, very informative. Next, please. And stay up to date with information. Follow us on Campaign for Uyghurs. Go to our campaignforuyghurs.org and sign up for our mailing list so you can receive periodic updates and information. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and the Twitter, which is X right now. Both Campaign for Uyghurs and my handle is Rushan Abbas. And they like us on Campaign for Uyghurs. If you can, please donate on our website so we can continue our advocacy work. Next, please. Yep, now I'm open to your questions.
Rushan, thank you so, so much for all of the information and many of the very disturbing and startling stories. We have a number of questions from people in the audience. I'm going to pick a few to ask you. We probably won't have time for all of them. But one that came from a couple people is just how are experts like you, how are you able to obtain information and facts from within China, considering how controlled and oppressive the communication system is?
Yeah, very surprisingly, at the beginning, the Chinese government helped us themselves. First few pictures, you probably noticed that there are some Chinese writings. Those are from the official Chinese websites. They promoted the camps. They promoted what they are doing, try to tell the fake stories about, oh, Uyghurs needs re-education. We are trying to teach them vocational works. And they even try to publish those pictures of, oh, we are eliminating the extremism and showing that burning Qurans and burning other things. So we got those at that time. Now we don't have those anymore. They deleted after they realized that that was a mistake. But the others, people are sacrificing their lives to send those information out. They post those. They send us on the sometimes on the Douyin, which is like equal to TikTok. They post some of the videos, and some people, when they talk to their family members, they just say, "We all die once. You know, you need to know." Chinese government is trying to keep us in the dark, and just lying to the world. So you need to know. So they are sending out those information.
Hmm. Another question that came from a couple of people has to do with the U.S. response or lack thereof. And I know this is something you've been working on for many years. So one part of the question is, are there economic or any sort of sanctions imposed on China or by any country for what they are doing? And has the U.S. done anything?
Yes, there is the law, Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. With that, there are some companies being sanctioned, and it's actually like it puts the obligation on the companies to prove that your goods is not using the Uyghur slaves or it's not tainted by forced labor. So with that, we do have some sanctions, but there's a de minimis act, the de minimis clause on the law, because it says the goods less than $800 is not subject to this law. And China's so smart on using anything like that, and they are shipping in millions of small packages. And the Shane and the Temu, those are a part of that. You know, they ship small packages, cheap stuff, and all of these are actually tainted by Uyghur slaves. Any goods made with cotton come from China. 85%, 85 to 88% of China's cotton output picked by Uyghur slaves by hand. So the US government, luckily we have bipartisan support. It's a humanity issue. And anybody who cares for humanity, who cares for the never again, they are actually advocating for Uyghurs, but at the same time, some companies are lobbying at the Hill against the implementation of those legislations. But the previous administration and this administration both declared that it's genocide. So we have a clear decision of the government that China is conducting genocide. But we still need to push. We still need to have the public opinion. We need to educate the general public to have the new legislations, like there is a Uyghur Forced Labor Disclosure Act, which would try to deal with those kind of loopholes like de minimis. And that's also not passing right now. It's stuck on the Senate. So we have a lot of legislations that we need to push forward.
What, so Rushan, we have time for maybe one last question. And I'm wondering, and this came through also, are there any sort of resistance movements or any internal resistance that's happening in China against these actions?
Right now, nothing. And they are actually trying to persecute people's dreams and the people's minds, not any kind of action. So people are basically fighting for survival right now. There's no any kind of resistance. Our biggest disappointment is the world community, especially the Muslim majority community, the Muslim majority countries, Muslim leaders. Everybody's ignoring, and they are treating China as a legitimate business partner, and just seeing the short-term economy that they are gaining. But for me, this is not just about the sake of the Uyghurs' future anymore. It's about the freedom and the democracy. It's about the human dignity. If today we stay silent because of the manipulations or economy or China's influences, then what's going to happen tomorrow? If you look at Hollywood celebrities, talk show hosts, NBA superstars, or any kind of CEOs of those so-called woke companies, they are so vocal against any kind of social injustice. Rightfully they should, right? But where are they when something like this, what you just have heard, is happening in front of everybody's watch? So if you don't speak out against the China's atrocity because of the economy and the benefits you are receiving, then you lose privilege of speaking about anything and anywhere.
Those are powerful words, and really a call to all of us to take notice and do what we can to make sure that others know that this is happening.
Thank you. And I just want to end with one last sentence. We all responsible for what happens next. If we don't speak out now, then the only voice will be left to speak will be one of regret.
Rushan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing these stories, for telling us about your sister and your community. I think we all have a responsibility, and thank you for challenging us to speak out and take notice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone for joining this program today. We have several programs this month commemorating Genocide Awareness Month, and I hope you can join us this Sunday at 2:00 in the afternoon at the Holocaust Center for Humanity to hear Paul Caramera's story of the Rwandan genocide. And on April 18th, we are hosting a teacher workshop on how to teach about the genocide in Rwanda. If you aren't already signed up for our May 5th program, do so now because seating is limited. This is our Holocaust Remembrance Day Yom HaShoah program. It's at 2:00 in the afternoon at the Seattle Public Library, and it features Holocaust survivor Henry Friedman, who will be sharing his remarkable story of surviving 18 months in hiding in Eastern Poland. The program is free and open to everyone, but registration is required, and all of the details are on our website. Our next Lunch and Learn program is on Tuesday, May 14th, and will focus on the new podcast called Covering Their Tracks, which is about the French Railroad's involvement and responsibility in the Holocaust. If you are a legal professional, you can also earn 1 CLE credit by attending. And again, it's called Covering Their Tracks. That's the name of the podcast. Go and check it out. You can find it pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. All of this work would not be possible without this exceptional team that we have at the Holocaust Center. A special thanks to Morgan Romero, who's running the technical side of this program today. And thank you to our entire team, Dee Simon, our CEO, Paul Regelbrug and Brenda Anderson, Jessica Michaels, Richard Green, Lori Werschel-Cohen, Lexi Jason, Amanda Davis, Katie Lawrence, Michael Langberg, Olivia Teague, Mario Felipe Monte, and Lisa Spink. Thank you also to Verizon and the Conference on Material Claims Against Germany for their support of this program. And thank you to all of you for watching this program today. This concludes our program, and we hope to see you at the next one.